Welcome to the Pet Loss Journals podcast. I am your host, Louise. This podcast is all about the reality and impact pet loss has on our lives, and I will be discussing my personal journey through pet loss. So if you are struggling on your own pet loss journey, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome to episode 23. This episode is somewhat a bonus episode actually this week, and so it's a little bit coming off the topic of not a journal entry, but something special that I wanted to speak about that was close to my heart this week. It's the new year. I am fully aware that Christmas and the new year can be extremely difficult for many of you listeners that may have lost a pet during the Christmas holidays or even in the months prior to that. So while we are flooded with so much, New Year's resolutions and goal setting and happiness and all of this kind of stuff, that it can be a very difficult time for many people that are having to come to terms with their pet's death. And unfortunately, I have spoken to a lot of people over the Christmas holidays that have been through that, whether that's people that I know in my circle or a couple of clients and so on. So it's been a difficult time, because when you're out of your routine and you're not working, it can be really difficult to sit with that grief. It almost has to be felt because we are not in our normal routine, we're not in work, and that kind of thing. So my heart goes out to anyone listening to this episode that has experienced that. And I'm here, it's difficult. There is this community now, and it's so special that I've created that. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, join the free Facebook group, or of course over on Instagram. I'm on Instagram stories quite often now, so send me a message, and we can have a chat and tell me how you're feeling and so on. My DMs are always open. So 2023, what can I say? It's been a year that has had ups and downs and challenges and highlights and fun, and like a mixture of a year. It's been, I'm just doing a lot of reflecting now in the last few days, and what happened for me in 2023? Well, a few things happened. Well, in January I set up this wonderful business, the Light After Loss, trying to spread some light on people's pet loss and helping them through that time. In July, I also got engaged to my boyfriend Steve, and that was extremely exciting, and a couple of months of celebration, so that was incredible. Many of you have heard me talking about Steve already in the most recent episodes, actually, where I moved in with him and everything else. So you've heard a little bit about that story. So if you haven't, pop back to a few episodes ago to listen back to that. So that's been incredible, and it was such a happy time. We're so looking forward to the wedding and doing the planning and hoping to not get too stressed or any of that kind of thing. But it's going to be a special time for us, and I'm delighted. I'm it's kind of surreal, to be honest, because I didn't ever think that I would be in this situation. If you go back and listen to episode 1, you will see the journey that I've been on, that my 6-year relationship ended at that time 4 years ago, and I honestly did not think that I would meet somebody that I would end up getting engaged to and getting married eventually to. And it's not, it's crazy to think that the headspace that I was in, my mental health was at rock bottom. But the fact that so much has changed, so much growth has happened for me in my personal life and everything else, and all of this is down to sitting down with myself and processing a lot of grief and a lot of loss experience in my life, not only pet loss but a lot of other loss experiences in my life that were really holding me back and keeping me stuck in those patterns. I spoke on Instagram yesterday about the patterns that we continue to get stuck in over the years. A lot of it is really down to how we've handled loss in our lives from a very young age, and unfortunately, as I've spoken about before, it's really difficult to navigate that and to find a way to re-educate ourselves about grief and about loss, and how not to push it down, suppress it, and just say, I'm just going to get on with my life and ignore this, and it'll surface eventually. It did with me. So there was a lot of personal development, growth in the last year and in the last 4 years, to be honest. And it's been amazing. In October, then in 2023, I celebrated and honoured the life of Ozzy and Moose. It was their 4-year anniversary since they passed away, so we did some lovely things to honour their memory. And then in November 23, this is something that I've spoken about on social media that I gave a teaser about, but Steve and I decided to foster this gorgeous dog. He's just been incredible, and I'm waiting to speak about this until now because by the time this episode is released, Puka, which is his name, Puka, will be off with his new family. So he was adopted by a lovely family. Steve and I fostered Puka for 6 weeks, 6 glorious weeks. It feels like longer for us, but that is what this episode is going to be all about, is about fostering. And when is the right time to, welcome a new pet into your life following pet loss. So this is what this episode is going to be centered around. I think it's important to talk about this. It's definitely an episode that I've definitely had on the list, as there's been many on the list, but this one, it feels like the right time now to speak about this. I was scrolling on social media in probably the end of October, and this rescue charity that I follow, Puka's face, his little foster appeal kept popping up on my feed, and I was like, oh, he's gorgeous. He is a pure white greyhound, the biggest greyhound I've ever seen. He is huge, and his eyes were just piercingly beautiful, and he kept popping up over the several days, and I was like, oh, I keep seeing this dog, this Puka dog. If anyone's wondering, actually, Puka, P-U-C-A, is Gaelic for ghost. So because he's pure white, it's a very apt name. So Puka kept popping up on my feed, and I was like, why do I keep seeing this particular dog all the time? So I must say I ignored those feelings, but he kept appearing. He kept appearing on my stories, on my news feed, on Instagram, and I was like, there must be a reason why I keep seeing him. And then I found myself thinking about him when I wasn't on social media. I thought, God, he's gorgeous. I know he needs a foster home until he finds a new family, and they weren't, they didn't seem to be finding anybody to foster him. I showed a picture of him to Steve, and we were like, God, he's gorgeous. And I said, I wonder what it would be like if we fostered him. And we both looked at each other and were like, I don't know, like, it's a lot of responsibility, and are we both ready for that? Am I ready for that? And I thought about it for maybe a week before I sent the email, and what I thought about specifically, which will be of interest to a few of you listening, I'm sure, is, am I ready to bring a new dog into my life, into my daily life, into my routine, into my world, into my heart, most importantly? I have been doing a lot of grief work around the death of both of my dogs, and a lot of you will know that their deaths was very sudden. I did not get time to prepare for their deaths. So for some reason, my intuition and my gut was telling me, this is it. This is the first dog now that you should have in your life since the death of Ozzy and Moose. And the 4-year anniversary had just passed. And I've been around friends' dogs and taken care of them occasionally for short periods of time, but actually choosing to bring a dog into our little family, our little house, was such a big deal. So I thought about it and I said, you know what, it feels right. It just feels right. And I listened to my body and its responses and reactions when I asked myself those questions. And I asked myself those questions in my mind's eye, and also I journaled on it. I asked myself, what would it feel like if I fostered this dog? What would it feel like for me? Do I feel that this is something that I'm ready for? And I got these answers for myself. And so we made that decision together, Steve and I, and we said, you know what, let's foster. I knew that both of us weren't in a position to adopt a dog. Steve travels a lot and I like to do some travelling and a lot of hiking, and I'm away from the house a good bit, and really our lifestyles at the minute, it's not stable enough to have a dog, and really full time, of course, but really the thing is about it is it's such a huge responsibility. But the fact that there was an opportunity to foster a dog for a short term amount of time was like to see, like a taster, to see how will this work, how will he slot into our life, how will I feel. I want to assess my emotions and my feelings surrounding it and all of this. So we went ahead and made the decision. The home check was done by the rescue and everything was okay, ready to go. We collected Puka and we prepared ourselves mentally for what was to come. Puka was a rescued greyhound and he had never been in a house before, so there was obviously that apprehension of how will he manage, will he be okay, and he was very fearful of getting into the car when we collected him. So he'd obviously never been in a car before. I think he had been transported in a van, so he was very, very nervous in the car. So I had lots of treats we had prepared. Really, we prepared a lot, like with the beds and the toys and the enrichment toys, the Kongs and everything else. And what was most striking to me while I was preparing for his arrival was bringing the items down from the attic that my dogs owned, like they were my dogs' toys and bowls and collars and leads, Kong toys, bringing those down and sitting with them and asking myself, okay, am I comfortable, unpacking these and getting some of these out for Puka to use, for his enjoyment, for his life. Obviously there was some items that I chose to leave there because they meant a lot, but there was other items that I decided to say, yeah, you know what, it's the right thing to do. I feel okay about these items, and I am okay that if Puka wants to play with these and use these. So I went through that carefully a good few days before he arrived. So we had everything in place at home, and we brought him straight out to the back garden when he arrived, and he did, like, he was toileting outside and everything, which was great. It was very seamless, to be honest. He was a little bit fearful, but he started to slowly come out of his shell over the 6 weeks, and you could just see his personality shining through. Such an incredible dog, and I've never been in contact with greyhounds before, and wow, they are so different to any other breed of dog. And some of you may have owned a greyhound or may be familiar with them, but they are full of personality. They are couch potatoes. They sometimes don't love really long walks because which I try my best to get him out for at least an hour. If I'm doing well, he'll walk for an hour and in the countryside. But they are not built for hiking. They are built for short bursts of energy, but not endurance. but they are the most chilled out dogs. The hyperness isn't in them, only when they get the zoomies, obviously. But he was just a unique soul. He was 2. It was his birthday a couple of days ago before he went off to his new home, so he turned 2, and you could really see the teenager-ish behaviour coming out. He was adorable. To get into a little bit more about Puka himself, what I want to do in this episode is to kind of frame it around some pet loss journal prompts. So you'll see that if you've listened to other episodes, in the show notes I often have the pet loss journal prompts download available, which is completely free, and it's the 28-page document, a guide full of journal prompts that's printable. You can print out, or you can just use them from the screen and write out your feelings from the journal prompts. But there's a couple of them in that document, in that guide, that I wanted to focus around Puka, really, and really kind of give you the sense of some of the things that Puka brought to my life. So for example, my favourite memory with Puka is when we went to the Marina Market in Cork City, which some of you might know about, and it's this wonderful market with food stalls and all kinds of stalls, and he had a little ice cream, and he had he had some little potato snacks when we were eating our lunch, and we just had such a lovely time with him, and he just was not stressed out. He loved the environment, looking at all the people coming and going and the dogs and everything, and we got some laughs from him. And everywhere we went, everybody would stop us and say, oh, he's gorgeous, because he's so unique, and he was such a big greyhound and pure white, and he stood out, and he was just stunning, really. That was one of my favourite memories. But I mean, there's so many. I mean, I don't think that I could pick one, to be honest, one memory. We brought him up to my family for Christmas and to visit, and he just brightens every room, and everybody he meets, he's so friendly and wants to come over and for attention. And that was one of my favourite memories, seeing him connect with others in my family. I suppose the fact that they hadn't seen me with the dog in so long, it was unusual for them, but it was also lovely for them to kind of get a sense of that. It was lovely to see him connect with people that are important to me in my life. One thing that always made me smile was, so this is another journal prompt. One thing that always made me smile about Puka was that in time, when he started to come out of his shell, he was quite fond of a sandwich. So he would then eventually stand in the kitchen and was looking directly at the sliced pan of bread and would bark at it and bark and bark. He was basically asking for a sandwich. I would try not to give it to him when he barked. But that was something that always made me smile and made Steve smile. It was something so quirky about Puka that it was incredible, really. The biggest lesson Puka taught me was, so this is another journal prompt. The biggest lesson he taught me was that it is possible to form a connection with another companion animal, with another dog, specifically for me. Because if I'm totally honest with you all, I mean, I'm human. It was 4 years, and I fully believed that nothing would ever measure up to the connections I had with my dogs, and in particular with Ozzy, because he was in my life a lot longer than Moose was. He was my little baby, and I was pretty fully convinced that nothing could ever measure up to that. And don't get me wrong, the connection that I formed with Puka was completely different to the connections I formed with my other two dogs. But what's special about it was he taught me that it's possible to love another dog, and that it's possible to open my heart to a new bond and a new relationship. And it took me the first week when he was here, my heart wasn't fully open to him. But my God, did he find a way to open my heart. He did. I was protecting myself in a way, but wow, did he open my heart. And once I let go, once I surrendered to that and let that bond form and let that connection start to form, there was no stopping it then. You know what I mean? It just took off. I love describing it like that, because so that's the biggest lesson that Puka taught me. And speaking to all of you about this is so important, because this is something that I had never experienced before. Many people have asked me, even clients, why haven't you got a dog in your life, and this and that and the other. And lifestyle, is the main reason, because I can't, commit that time and dedication and attention that a dog deserves. God, they deserve it. Because I travel and Steve travels a lot. So, but to do this was incredible, and I wanted to talk about this experience. Something special about Puka that I will never forget is, wow, there was lots of special things. I'm just trying to think. Something special about him is definitely the way that he would just look and gaze at you. He would gaze at me in a way that was so loving, that would make me head straight on over to him for a cuddle. And he was such a good cuddler. Once I assessed his body language to make sure that he was comfortable with touch, but the more the days that went on, and he was just loving the cuddles and the rubs and the touch, and that was just the most special thing about him. His unique eyes, and he would just gaze at you, and he would melt your soul, melt your heart, and I would just go straight to him. It's like I was melting butter in his hand, basically. He could look at me and say, right, she's going to come over to me now in about 2 seconds and give me all the attention I need. So I'm grateful for Puka because, so this is another one. I'm grateful for Puka because he has brought the meaning of unconditional love back into my life that I had with my dogs 4 years ago. It's been something that I'm getting emotional now, but it's something that I missed so much. And he's just, I'm so grateful for, continually seeing him on Instagram and listening to my intuition and getting to experience that unconditional love from, an animal. It had been 4 years, so I'm getting emotional because, it's I'm human, and it's such an amazing feeling that, not that I had forgotten about how it felt, but it's just incredible to have felt that again. And I feel so grateful for him for giving me that experience and that opportunity to feel that again in my life. I'll never forget the day I'll never forget the day we picked Puka up for the first time. I'll never forget that day. He was a different dog. He was shivering in the back of the car. He was so nervous and he was so wary, and I'll just never forget that day. And we brought him out the back garden, and we were out there for ages with him for a long time, and just letting him roam, giving him the space to assess us, to smell us, to get to know his surroundings, his environment. And he did, he started to trot towards us, and he did his first tail wag for the two of us, and we were just overjoyed. It was just the most special feeling to see him, wag his tail for the first time and get that little bit of excitement in him. It was a day that I will never ever forget. It was so, so special. Something unique about Puka that always made me laugh. Oh, something unique that always made me laugh. He was a little thief, and I think that this is probably a hound personality trait, but because I've heard this from a good few people that have owned greyhounds and lurchers and other hounds, and that they are little thieves. That's what made me laugh the most, is that you would turn your back for 1 second and he had my 2 fluffy socks in his mouth. Loved fluffy socks. And if it wasn't that, it was like a plastic shopping bag, or if it wasn't that, it was a tea towel that was up on the counter. He was obsessed with tea towels, and the thing is he would just grab and go, and that was his thing. He would grab and go to his bed, and he wouldn't really necessarily even chew anything. He would just drop them on the bed and go, "This is mine now, and thank you very much." And if you took it back off him and put it back where it was, and if you turn your back for a second, there he goes again, gone again with the fluffy socks. And it made me laugh every day, and made Steve laugh. It was all the time we were laughing. He was just a character. And he would just take things, he was like, this is mine, anything kind of soft, anything kind of fluffy, anything like that. So he had a ton of teddies. He was obsessed with teddies. He loved playing with them. And it was only one teddy that he ripped apart a little bit, but the rest he just would carry around and kind of play with, and which was very unusual for me, because both of my dogs were never into teddies. They were way more into Kongs and enrichment toys and that kind of thing. They didn't have any love for teddies at all. But this dog, wow, he was amazed with the teddies. So that's what really made us smile. His love for his teddies and his little thievery. just such a quirky dog, and his character was just amazing and would sleep for hours, but then when he woke up was up to mischief and inquisitive about everything that you do. Nearly took some freshly cooked salmon off the countertop one day because he's so tall. So I mean, you'd have to be careful in the kitchen with him. But that's something that really made me laugh. So like what I'm trying to, get across to all of you is that what I'm going through right now is grief. And just because I'm, a grief recovery specialist doesn't mean that I don't experience loss and grief and pain. I do. And what I'm experiencing now is grief. I'm grieving the loss of Puka. Puka hasn't died, but Puka has left my life and he's gone to a new family. And because of that, I'm experiencing loss and I'm experiencing grief. We never compare losses in the work that I do in the groups or in one-to-ones, and it doesn't matter that Puka is still alive and is having a great life now, but my grief still matters, and it's a loss experience. The enrichment and the incredible joy that he brought to my life for those 6 weeks. And I wish we had longer time, but we didn't. But the 6 weeks, it was just eye-opening. It was incredible. Just got so attached to him. Both of us did. Which surprised Steve because he didn't feel like he would. But there you go. The love of a dog, it has a magical power over us. Puts us under this amazing spell. And it's really lightened my heart. Like I do feel sad and I miss him and I'm grieving him and I feel that loss. I really do. But I've learned these tools and skills about grief and about loss, and I can journal on it, and with those journal prompts and all of the grief work that I do in the background helps me so much to deal with that, so that it doesn't stop me from thinking about all of the good memories that I've just spoken to you all about. That's what's important about the relationship that I formed with Puka over the last 6 weeks. And another thing that I wanted to touch on was the fact that if you were listening and it's been however long since your pet has died and you were considering bringing a new pet into your life, maybe the thought has cropped into your mind a couple of times, which happens. Fostering is something that I would highly recommend. I mean, I've done that now. I've been in that situation, and you always hear of the foster fails, that it was a foster fail story, that the person ended up adopting the dog, that they couldn't let him go or let them go, be that a cat or a dog or even a horse or whatever kind of animal that they were fostering. But I definitely see there are pros and cons, of course. You've got the loss and the pain afterwards of fostering. But if you're fostering to maybe possibly just see how it feels to have a pet in your life again. And that pet may not be the one for you. You may end up adopting that pet if that pet is for you. But I would recommend fostering. It helps you to assess how you're feeling while that pet is in your care, whether that's temporary or a longer term foster. It's such an amazing option and opportunity, even though it's an incredible thing to do in general. I mean, sometimes it can save a dog from euthanasia, and that alone is an incredible gift to give a dog, a temporary home. Even if you feel that you're not quite ready for a dog full time in your life, but you miss that contact with a dog. Having a dog in your home and with you, living with you 24/7 for a temporary basis can be an amazing way to assess how you're feeling, after the loss of your own pet. Of course, what I would not recommend is fostering if you are still deep in grief and feeling those intense grief emotions, that roller coaster, as I talk about all of the time, that you're all sick of listening to me about. But if you're feeling that you're still, deep in that grief, that it's really painful, and that it's torturing you, and it's the story about what happened to your pet is going around and around and around in your mind, tormenting you, then I wouldn't suggest fostering. If that's how you're still feeling, if that's how you're feeling on that grief wave, that may not be helpful. When it is helpful is when you have processed that grief, and that the day-to-day life, those memories that you can think of is of good times, that those are the ones that come to your mind first, not those traumatic, painful memories of the ending. That is my best advice for you. Of course, everybody is individual, and some people say to me, I was deep in grief and I fostered a pet, or I adopted a pet and they helped me. Everybody is different, but from my own personal experience and from speaking to many, many clients, that processing their grief and feeling it has helped them to get to a stage where they can foster or adopt a new pet, compared to some people that I've spoken to that have jumped straight in very soon afterwards to adopt or to foster, and then feeling that they are comparing that pet to the pet that has died, and that it upsets them even further, and sends them further down the grief road, and that they can't see a light at the end, and if they have adopted that dog, they feel completely trapped. Then they're always constantly trying to build that relationship or that connection with the pet, but every connection is different, and we will never get that same connection again, but it will be a different connection. It will be a new connection, amazing connection. These are never the same, and trying to compare and replace with a new pet that soon, it can be so devastating to somebody who feels quite lost, that they can't bond with this dog, and sometimes even ends up resenting that animal or trying to rehome that animal again. So there's so much to think about there. I completely understand. This episode is probably one of my longest episodes and it is a tribute to Puka and to fostering. And I think it deserves this time and this length of an episode, because it's incredibly important for us to have an awareness about when we might be ready to bring a new pet into our lives. And if we're not ready, and that's okay as well. I'm just saying, there is no set time limit. It's been 4 years since my dogs died, and I wasn't planning on fostering a dog, but this is what happened. This opportunity came up. I was guided to it. My intuition was, guiding me towards this, and I always listen to my gut instinct and my intuition, whatever you might call it yourself. It could be different for you, but I think that it's been a wonderful experience. I am grieving, and you heard the emotion earlier, and that's okay. That is okay, because I'm a human too, and I still grieve, and I can still feel sadness, and I will always miss him and think of him, but also so grateful for the amazing lessons that he's taught me, and the joy that he gave me, and the laughs and the love. And even the three of us, me, Stevie and Puka, we had the most amazing 6 weeks of just incredible memories that we created, the three of us, and it's really made me open to fostering again. And yeah, I mean, there's such conflicting feelings in it. It's like, I really miss him, but we gave him an incredible start in life. He's never been in a house, so we gave him this incredible start so that he's prepared for his new life in an amazing new house with another family. And that's what's important here, is that we've given him that foundation and that base. And of course, some dogs that might be fostered would have already been in a house. This is just our situation. It makes it very rewarding to know that we have helped him to adapt into a domestic, into a home life, and that's something that we can really cherish and take away. And he's just an incredible dog, and I could talk way more about how amazing the experience was. It really, really opened my eyes, and it helped me to see that I don't need to protect myself anymore. I can open my heart to a new dog. I can open my heart to love a new animal, and that's the biggest takeaway for me from fostering, and I will definitely do it again. And in time, the right dog will come along when my lifestyle and when my situation has become the right time, really, to adopt a dog, and that will happen, and I know it will, and the right time will come for that. And that's what's important here. Listen to your body, your responses. Ask yourself, are you ready to do this? Journal on it. Download my journal prompts. It's a 28-page document. There are so many journal prompts in there. You will uncover things that you did not know about yourself. You will uncover the fact that, are you ready or not ready? That is something that you will uncover. So journaling on it is something that I highly recommend, and that's what helped me to get to a stage of understanding to see if I was ready to go ahead and foster a dog and welcome a new dog into my life, my routine, my house, my heart, because that's the most important place, is your heart. That's what you're really opening up. You're opening up your heart to let that dog in, and you're receiving that unconditional love, which is the most incredible gift of all. Before I finish today's episode, and wow, it's gone on longer than usual, but if this has sparked an interest and you're considering, I'd love to get to that stage, Louise, or I'd love to be able to even foster, let alone adopt, but I don't know where to start, and I need help in processing the grief, be that from a pet you've lost quite some time ago or recently, or you're anticipating the loss of a pet also. I do have a pet loss support group program starting on Tuesday, 16th of January, Irish time, 7 p.m. Irish time, and this will be every Tuesday for 6 weeks on Zoom, completely online. This is an opportunity for some of you, if you're interested, to really dive deep into processing that grief, what I've spoken about for weeks. And it's a step-by-step action-orientated program. It's evidence-based, originated in the Grief Recovery Institute in the US, and this is what I guide people through all the time. Help them to get to a stage of remembering the fond memories, remembering the good memories, and that is often the result of doing this program, is that they get to remember and speak about the good memories, and that the traumatic, painful memories of the ending of their pet's life aren't tormenting them, aren't at the forefront of their memory. That is what grieving is, and processing grief. and really, really, really looking at that unresolved grief and resolving it. This is something that I'm so passionate about, and I have been sharing some snippets of past clients and about their experience with the program over on Instagram in the last week or so. So pop on over there to Instagram. If the handle is below in the show notes. These groups are always very small. I don't like to have big groups, so there is really limited number of spots, and if you're feeling guided towards doing that, the registration link is in the show notes for that program. It's starting in less than 2 weeks' time. If you have any questions at all, pop me an email and I can help you with those questions or anything that you may need. But if you are feeling that you need that extra support to get to a stage of, maybe getting to a stage of fostering or adopting another dog, of course, that option is there for you to sign up to my next program. I won't be having another program probably until end of February, so I'm hoping that that I can get around to doing another one. I do, of course, have one-to-one sessions, limited number of those as well, but you can email me about that as well. I want to thank you for listening. If you've gotten this far along, I thank you so much for listening. This is something that I have been excited to share about. Very personal as well, that I wondered, will I share this? Will I not share this? But, I'm in a habit of getting vulnerable and personal on this podcast, and I don't intend on stopping. But I do love your comments and all of your messages that I receive about this podcast. You have no idea how much it means to me to hear your comments about this podcast and how it's helped and comforted you. You really don't have any idea. It helps me to keep this podcast going and motivates me to keep going with it, that it's reaching the right people and that it's providing validation and comfort to you. Thank you so much for those comments. They just mean the world to me. Until next week. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this week's episode. Remember, your pet loss grief is real and it is so valid. Please be gentle on yourself. Until next time, take care.